Let me ask you something real. Have you ever stayed in a relationship longer than you actually wanted to? Not because there was one big dramatic moment that made you leave. Not because she cheated or lied or betrayed you in some obvious way. But because there was just this quiet feeling, this persistent sense that something isn't right. That's where most men get trapped. Because here's the psychological truth most people don't want to accept. The most dangerous relationships aren't the toxic ones. They're the ones that slowly drain your energy, your confidence, and your sense of self while looking completely acceptable on the surface. By the time you realize what's happening, you've already lost months, sometimes years. You've given energy to something that was never actually built to last.
In this video, I'm breaking down 7 subtle but devastating signs that your relationship won't make it. Not because I want to depress you, but because the earlier you see these patterns, the less of yourself you lose. This isn't about what she says. This is about what she consistently shows you through her actions. Most men don't miss these signs. They choose not to interpret them because interpretation requires action. If you're ready to stop guessing and start seeing patterns for what they really are, hit subscribe right now. Engagement, CTA NER 1, around 45 seconds. Because the clarity you're about to get could save you years of emotional investment in something that was never going to work. Let's break this down. Section 1, the priority paradox. She's always too busy. Let's start with the first sign, and this one is subtle, but it tells you absolutely everything if you're actually paying attention. She's always too busy for you. Now, listen carefully, because most men completely misread this. They hear, "I'm busy," and immediately try to be understanding. They tell themselves she has a full life, she has responsibilities, she has priorities. And technically, that's true. She does have those things. But here's what you're missing about the psychology underneath that excuse. Busy people don't stop being busy. They just decide who they're willing to make time for. Watch her actions, not her explanations, because explanations are cheap. Effort is not. This is crucial. If she can somehow find time for brunch with her friends, spontaneous trips with her coworkers, endless scrolling on social media, or even entertaining another man's attention, but when it comes to you, she's always too busy. That's not a scheduling problem. That's not about her calendar being full. That's prioritization, pure and simple. And right now, you're not high on that list. I want you to ask yourself something honestly. Are you consistently the one initiating contact? Are you the one always adjusting your schedule? Are you the one constantly trying to make things work? Because when that dynamic becomes completely one-sided, something deeper is happening psychologically. You're not actually building a relationship. You're chasing access. You're pursuing something that doesn't naturally come toward you. And here's what most men don't understand. The more you chase, the less she respects your presence in her life. It's counterintuitive, but it's true. Your effort signals neediness to her subconscious mind, not commitment. Nay, let me give you an uncomfortable truth most men avoid like the plague. When a woman is genuinely interested in you, genuinely invested in building something with you, she doesn't just make time. She creates space. She finds small, intentional ways to stay connected even when life is genuinely busy. A quick call, a message that doesn't feel forced, a moment where you feel genuinely included in her day. It doesn't have to be grand or dramatic, but it has to be intentional. It has to come from her wanting to maintain that connection. If that intention is missing, if you're the one always doing the reaching out, what she's really showing you is distance. Emotional distance, and emotional distance doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from a lack of genuine emotional investment. Here's the psychological reality. Time is the one resource everyone has equally. Rich or poor, busy or not, everyone gets 24 hours in a day. So how she spends that time tells you exactly where you stand, not what she promises, not what she says when she's trying to make you feel better. Where you actually stand based on her actions. Let me say this in a way you won't forget because this is critical. If she only makes time for you when it's convenient for her, when it fits into what she already wants to do, you're not part of her life. You're an option within it, and options don't last. Options get replaced, options get forgotten. Pay close attention to that. Engagement CTA number 2, around 3 minutes. If this is resonating with you, if you're starting to recognize this pattern in your own relationship, smash that like button. It actually helps our algorithm and makes sure more people discover the real psychology behind relationships. Keep watching, because the next sign is even more revealing, and it's the one that keeps men stuck for years. Section 2, the emotional wall. You never really know her. The second sign is quieter than the first. It doesn't create obvious tension. It doesn't cause big fights or drama. In fact, a lot of men stay trapped in this dynamic for months, even years, without truly realizing what's happening. You never really feel like you know her. On the surface, everything seems fine. You talk, you spend time together, you know the basics about her life, her favorite food, her daily routine, maybe even some details about her past relationships in a very general sense. But something fundamental is missing. Depth. Genuine emotional depth. Every single time you try to go deeper emotionally, you hit a wall. You ask her a real question about how she's feeling, what she's thinking, what she wants from life, and she gives you safe answers. Sanitized versions of the truth. You try to understand her emotionally, to really see her, and she somehow redirects the conversation. You open up to her hoping she'll meet you in that vulnerable space, but she doesn't. And after a while, you stop trying because it starts to feel exhausting. It starts to feel like you're the only one reaching, the only one trying to create real connection. Now, here's where most men psychologically confuse the situation. They tell themselves she's just a private person, or that she needs more time to open up, or that if they just prove themselves enough, eventually she'll let her guard down and they'll finally have the real connection they're looking for. Sometimes that's actually true, but most of the time, it's not. Most of the time, what you're experiencing is deliberate emotional distance. And there are really only 2 psychological reasons why a woman keeps you at this kind of distance. The first reason is protection. She's been hurt in the past. She doesn't trust easily. So she keeps her guard up as a defense mechanism. That makes sense. It's understandable. But here's what men don't want to hear. Even a woman who's guarded, even a woman with walls and trust issues, if she genuinely sees a future with you, will slowly let you in, not all at once, not dramatically, but consistently over time. She'll have moments where she's vulnerable. She'll share pieces of herself incrementally. She'll show you who she really is beneath the protection. But if time is passing, weeks and months are going by, and nothing is changing, if you're in the exact same place emotionally, that's not protection anymore. That's a decision. That's a boundary she's deliberately maintaining. The second reason is even more direct, and it's the one men really hate to hear. She doesn't see you as long-term. She enjoys your presence. She likes the comfort you provide. She likes the attention. Maybe she even likes the stability you bring to her life. But she's not emotionally investing in you because in her mind, you're not the man she's building a future with. You're not the one. And when that's the case, when that's what she actually believes, she will deliberately keep things light, surface level, easy to walk away from, because the deeper she lets you into her emotional world, the harder it becomes for her to leave, the more connected you become. So she keeps the door closed and you stay outside, hoping and waiting for it to open, not realizing she's already decided it won't. Let me give you a truth that most men learn far too late in life. A woman who genuinely sees a future with you doesn't make you guess who she is. She doesn't make you work for access to her inner world. She reveals herself. Layer by layer, vulnerability by vulnerability, because she wants to be known by you. She wants you to see her. That's what emotional investment looks like. If that's not happening, if you're still in the dark about who she really is after months together, stop asking why she's so closed off. Start asking why you're still trying to get in, because the answer to that second question is more important. Section 3, the conflict avoidance pattern. She shuts down when things get hard. The third sign shows up when things get uncomfortable. Not when everything is smooth and fun and easy. Not when you're laughing together, going out, enjoying each other's company. But when there's actual tension. When there's a real disagreement. And what you need to pay very close attention to is not the argument itself, but how you feel after it ends. Because in a genuinely healthy relationship, conflict doesn't pull you apart. It actually forces you to understand each other better. It's messy, yes, it's emotional sometimes. But there's movement, there's an active effort to reconnect, there's progress toward understanding. Now, compare that to this pattern. You have an argument about something real, and then she disappears emotionally. She shuts down completely. She avoids your attempts to talk about it. She walks away mid-conversation. Or worse, she gives you silence. Not a healthy space to cool off, but silence that feels like punishment. Silence that makes you feel abandoned. And suddenly, you're left there trying to make sense of everything on your own. You replay the conversation over and over. You question yourself. You wonder if you pushed too hard, if you said the wrong thing, if you had unrealistic expectations, and she's just gone, emotionally unavailable. But here's what's really happening psychologically. You're trying to fix something that she has already mentally and emotionally checked out of. Because when a woman is genuinely invested in you, when she's committed to building something real, she doesn't avoid the hard conversations. She leans into them. Not perfectly, not calmly every single time, but she stays. She wants resolution. She wants to understand you and be understood. But when she consistently avoids that process, when every disagreement ends with distance instead of clarity, when you're the only one trying to repair things, that's not emotional overwhelm. That's not just her being tired. That's emotional disengagement. That's her showing you through her actions that she's not willing to do the work. And I want you to notice something very important. Does this happen once in a blue moon? Once in a blue, or does it happen every single time things get difficult? Because if it's a pattern, if it's consistent, then you're not dealing with a bad day or a bad mood. You're dealing with a dynamic, a recurring pattern, a dynamic where you carry the entire emotional weight of the relationship by yourself. And that's where the real damage begins. Nothing destroys a man faster than feeling completely alone while standing right next to someone he's committed to, someone he thought was committed to him. You start to shrink, you start to hold back pieces of yourself, you stop expressing what you really feel because you already know exactly how it's going to end. Silence, distance, disconnection. You become smaller. Let me say this clearly because it's important. If she avoids resolving conflict with you, she is avoiding building a future with you because the relationships that actually last are not built on the good moments. Everyone has good moments. They're built on how two people handle the difficult ones, how you show up for each other when things are hard. Engagement, CTA number 3, around 6 minutes. By the way, if you're watching this and recognizing yourself in these signs, drop a comment. Tell me which one hit you hardest. Because sharing helps the algorithm and it also helps you process what you're seeing. And if you haven't subscribed yet, this is the moment. Because the remaining signs are where everything really comes together. Section 4, the scorekeeping trap. She keeps mental records. The 4th sign is more subtle. It doesn't always show up in obvious conflict. Sometimes it hides behind jokes, behind small comments you brush off at first, behind what seems like teasing but feels off. She keeps score. At the beginning, it might seem harmless. You forget something small, and she brings it up later. Not just once, but multiple times. She'll mention it weeks later, like it's still fresh. Or you do something thoughtful. And instead of genuine appreciation, somehow it turns into comparison. I've done more for you than that. Remember when I did this for you? You still owe me for that? And slowly, without you fully realizing it, your entire relationship starts to feel like a transaction, like a business deal. Every action is tracked. Every mistake is stored in her mental database. Every effort becomes part of some invisible ledger she's constantly updating. Now, let's break this down because this isn't just annoying behavior. This isn't just irritating. There's a deep psychological dynamic underneath it that's actually quite damaging. When someone keeps score, when they're constantly tracking what they've done versus what you've done, they're not focused on real connection. They're focused on control. Because if she can remind you of what you owe her, she positions herself above you in the dynamic. She creates a power dynamic where you're always trying to catch up, always trying to prove yourself, always trying to rebalance something that was never meant to be measured in the first place. That's not a relationship. That's pressure. That's walking on eggshells. And over time, it destroys something absolutely essential to any real bond: trust. Because trust requires safety. It requires the ability to be imperfect, to make mistakes, to be human, without it being stored as ammunition against you. But when she keeps score, when she's constantly evaluating, there is no safety. There is only evaluation. And a man who feels constantly evaluated, constantly judged, eventually disconnects. Or worse, he becomes someone he doesn't recognize just to avoid conflict. So if you find yourself constantly being reminded of what she's done for you, or made to feel like you're always behind, always owing her something, you need to understand this. You're not building something real. You're participating in a power game. And in that game, no one actually wins. Section 5. The stress indicator: you feel more drained than nourished. The fifth sign is the one most men feel but refuse to admit. It's the one that's been sitting in your chest this whole time. You feel more stressed than satisfied. And I don't mean occasional stress. Every relationship has stressful moments. That's normal. That's life. I'm talking about something much deeper, a constant, persistent tension that follows you everywhere, even when nothing is actively happening, even when you're just sitting next to her. There's a low-level anxiety running through you. Now, you're around her, but you're not actually relaxed. You're thinking about what to say and what not to say. You're monitoring how she might react to something. You're calculating whether something small could turn into something bigger. You're in constant assessment mode. Your nervous system is in a state of low-level alert. And you start adjusting yourself without even consciously realizing it. You filter your words. You hold back your actual opinions. You walk carefully through conversations. Like one wrong step, one wrong word might trigger something you don't want to deal with. You're managing her emotions more than you're connecting with her. That's not connection. That's survival mode. That's what your nervous system does when it feels threatened. And here's the dangerous part that most men don't realize. The longer you stay in that state, the more you normalize it. You start telling yourself this is just what relationships are actually like, that this is normal, that relationships are supposed to be hard, that you just need to try harder, be better, do more, that if you can just figure out what she needs, everything will be okay. But let me correct that for you right now. There is a massive difference between effort and emotional exhaustion. Effort builds something, it creates progress. Exhaustion drains everything, it depletes you. And when your relationship consistently leaves you feeling drained, anxious, on edge, hypervigilant, your mind and body are trying to tell you something your emotions don't want to accept. They're trying to tell you that you are not safe in this dynamic. Emotionally, you are not safe. And when a man doesn't feel emotionally safe, two things begin to happen simultaneously. First, he disconnects from himself. He stops expressing what he really thinks and feels. He becomes smaller, more controlled, less alive. He pulls back from being fully himself. Second, attraction starts to die because real attraction needs space. It needs ease. It needs a fundamental sense of freedom between two people. But constant stress suffocates attraction. You can't feel genuinely close to someone you're constantly guarding yourself against. You can't feel desire when your nervous system is in defense mode. Your body's survival instinct overrides everything else. And over time, what you once called love starts to feel like obligation, like something you have to maintain instead of something you naturally want to be in. The relationship becomes a job, a burden, something you carry. Let me give you a truth that most men ignore until it's way too late. If being with her feels heavier than being without her, your body has already made the decision your mind is still avoiding. Your instincts know. Your nervous system knows. You're just not willing to listen yet. A healthy relationship, a real relationship, brings you peace even when things aren't perfect. When there's disagreement, when there's challenge, there's still an underlying sense of safety and connection. But if you're constantly tense, constantly second-guessing, constantly trying to keep things from falling apart, you're not building something stable. You're holding something together that's already breaking. Engagement CTA Nerve 4, around 9 minutes. We're getting to the critical signs now. If this is hitting you, if you're feeling some of this in your own situation, don't close this video. Watch until the end because the last 2 signs are where everything crystallizes. And if you haven't subscribed yet, this is when you really need to, because these next signs are going to require you to make a decision. Section 6, the quiet competition. She competes instead of celebrates. The 6th sign is one most men don't recognize immediately because it doesn't look like traditional conflict. It looks like subtle disrespect. It feels like a pattern of competition. She competes with you. Now, I'm not talking about playful teasing or light rivalry. That can actually be healthy. That can even build attraction between 2 people. Light competition, healthy competition, that's different. I'm talking about something much deeper, a consistent pattern where your wins don't feel supported. They feel challenged. They feel threatened. You share something you're genuinely proud of, a promotion you worked hard for, progress on a goal you've been working toward for months, an accomplishment that matters to you. And instead of genuine excitement, instead of her being genuinely happy for you, she shifts the energy in the conversation. She downplays your achievement. She redirects the conversation to something about herself, or she immediately brings up something about her own accomplishments to balance the moment or even outshine it. At first, you might ignore it. You tell yourself she didn't mean it that way, that maybe you're overthinking it, that she was probably just having a bad day. But over time, you start noticing a pattern. It happens again and again and again. You don't feel celebrated. You feel compared. And that changes everything psychologically, because in a real partnership, in a real committed relationship, your success is something she takes genuine pride in. It's not something she feels the need to compete with. It's not threatening to her. She's genuinely happy for you because your growth is connected to her future too. So why does this happen? What's the psychology underneath this? It comes down to insecurity. When a woman sees your growth, your progress, your wins as a potential threat to her own sense of value, she doesn't lean into you. She tries to level the field. And the easiest way to do that is to subtly bring you down. Not in an obvious way, not aggressively, but in small, consistent moments that slowly shift the dynamic. A comment here, a joke there, a comparison that makes you question yourself, a subtle put down disguised as teasing, and before you realize what's happening, you're no longer sharing your wins freely. You hesitate before telling her about something good that happened because you already know what the reaction is going to be. You already know you're not going to feel celebrated. You're going to feel diminished. Let me tell you something clearly. A woman who is truly aligned with you builds with you. She doesn't compete for position. She doesn't need to prove she's above you or equal to you, because she understands that when you rise, she rises with you. When you win, you both win. Now that's partnership. But when she sees your progress as something to challenge, something to minimize, something to counter, you're no longer in a partnership. You're in a quiet competition. And competition creates distance. Because instead of moving in the same direction together, you're constantly measuring against each other. You're constantly trying to prove something, and that tension will eventually break the connection completely. Section 7, the emotional disconnection. She doesn't share your excitement. The 7th and final sign is one of the most overlooked, and it's one of the most revealing. She doesn't share your excitement. Think about this for a second. When something genuinely good happens in your life, who is the first person you want to tell? It's the person you feel closest to, the one you expect to understand you, the one you expect to feel what you feel, to celebrate with you, to be genuinely happy for you. That's what emotional connection actually looks like. So when you go to her with something you're genuinely excited about and her response feels flat, distracted, indifferent, that's not a small thing. That's not insignificant. That's information. That's a sign. Maybe she nods and says, "That's nice." Maybe she changes the subject. Maybe she gives you just enough reaction to be polite, but not enough to feel real, not enough to feel like she actually cares. And you feel it immediately, that disconnect, that absence. You try to ignore it at first. You tell yourself maybe she's tired, maybe it's just bad timing, maybe she'll be more present tomorrow. But then it happens again and again. And slowly something shifts inside you. You stop sharing as much. You stop bringing her your excitement because you already know what you're going to get back. You already know it's not going to land. And that's tragic because what you're experiencing is the slow death of real connection. Now, let's look at what this actually means psychologically. When a woman is emotionally invested in you, when she genuinely cares about you, your happiness matters to her. Not because she has to react a certain way to keep you around, but because she genuinely feels it. Your wins excite her. Your progress makes her proud. Your joy becomes something she participates in. She wants to be part of your good moments. So when that's missing, when your excitement is met with indifference, it tells you something deeper. Either she's emotionally disconnected from you, or she's dealing with her own internal comparison. Maybe even quiet resentment that you're experiencing things she wants for herself. But in both cases, the result is exactly the same. You are not sharing the same emotional space. And without that shared emotional space, without that mutual resonance, there is no real bond. There's just two people occupying the same space. Let me give you something to remember. A woman who is genuinely right for you doesn't just stand next to your life. She doesn't just tolerate your excitement. She steps into it. She celebrates it. She expands it. She makes you feel like your happiness is her happiness. If this video hit you in a way that felt uncomfortable, good. That discomfort means you're starting to see something clearly that you've been avoiding. That's actually progress. Comment below. Tell me which sign you've experienced, which one resonated most. Share this with someone who needs to hear it because somebody in your life right now is in this exact situation and they're pretending not to see it. And if you're done guessing, if you're ready to understand what's really happening beneath the surface of your relationships, subscribe to Secrets Inside the Mind. Because the men who see clearly are the men who stop wasting years on relationships that were never built to last. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.